Our very presentation is on the quality of living in Senegal, Africa.
Our research question is, how do education level, employment status, and age affect the living conditions of the respondents living in Senegal? The dataset we are using for our analysis is Afrobarometer 2005-2006, which contains 1,200 respondents. The analytical approach we are using is reliability analysis, cross-tabulation, chi-squared, and ANOVA. The rationale behind our research is based off of the findings from Heltberg's book, from which we concluded that the higher the education level, the higher the income earned, and the younger the population, the better able one is to obtain basic necessities, although everyone is affected by the poor economy. None of the indicators should be excluded because the total alpha score is 0.8227. This means that all of the items are very related and are measuring the same concept, as the alpha score is higher than the lowest acceptable score, which is 0.6. All of the alpha if deleted scores are lower than 0.8227, which means that removing any of the indicators will lower the alpha score. The original index had categories which we recoded into 3 categories titled rarely, moderately, and often. The standard deviation is 0.4, meaning that there is some variation within the variable. The kurtosis is 1.44, which tells us that the data is somewhat peaked. This is acceptable since it is between -3 and 3. The skewness is 0.025, telling us that it is positively skewed. However, it is so close to 0 that we could say the values are almost evenly distributed on both sides of the mean. The median is at 0.5, meaning that the value of the middle case is the center of our data.
For our independent variable of education level, we hypothesize that the higher education level completed by the respondent, the less often they will go without basic necessities. This is because the higher level of education attained, the more likely one will get a higher paying job, which in turn would lead to having basic necessities met. Our cross-tabulation supports this notion, evidenced by the majority of the people that have had problems meeting their necessities have often had no formal schooling, while the majority of the people who have completed a university education have very rarely not been able to meet their basic necessities. This can be further proven by looking at the Kendall's-Tau score of 0.285, meaning that this is a moderately strong and desirable relationship. The F probability is 0.000, meaning that there is less than 1 in 1,000 chances that the observed mean differences are due simply to sampling error. The findings in the Sheffe test suggest that those who completed secondary school, post-secondary, or university were closely related, while only having completed primary school greatly differed from the rest in regard to level education completed relating to having your basic necessities met. The null hypothesis is there is no relationship between the respondent's education level and their access to basic necessities.
For employment status, we hypothesized that those with a full-time job would have better access to basic necessities in comparison to those who are unemployed or have a part-time job. This is because on a general scale, respondents with a full-time job will have a higher income and will be able to obtain these basic necessities. Our findings do support our hypothesis, however the relationship between the two is not very strong. The Tau B score is 0.18159, meaning that the relationship is weak and minimally acceptable. The F prob is 0.00, meaning that there is less than 1 in 1,000 chances that the observed mean differences are due simply to sampling error. The findings in the Sheffe test suggest that having a full-time and part-time job are closely related, while having no job differs from the two in regard to employment or not being able to meet one's basic necessities. The null hypothesis is that there is no relationship between a respondent's employment status and their access to basic necessities.
For age, we hypothesize that middle-aged respondents will go without basic necessities less often than younger and older respondents. This is because we are assuming that middle-aged respondents are more likely to have the highest paying jobs, since younger respondents will just be entering or settling into the workforce, and older respondents are more likely to be retired. The findings do not support our hypothesis, since they actually prove the opposite. Middle-aged respondents were more likely to not be able to meet their basic necessities, while younger respondents were able to meet their basic needs the most. This may be because younger people may not need medical attention, or they may still be supported by their parents. The Kendall's Tau B is equal to 0.113, supporting that this relationship is very weak and that this information is incredible. The F probability is once again 0. The findings in the Sheffe test suggest the answer middle-aged and old are closely related, while young differs from the two in regard to age relating to not being able to meet one's basic necessities. The null hypothesis is there is no relationship between the age of the respondent and their access to basic necessities.
When comparing our findings to Hetler's theories, we found many similarities between the two bodies of research. Our findings were supported in the context that those with no income or employment were less able to access basic necessities such as healthcare and education. Those with a higher education level are indeed better able to obtain jobs, just as the book found and as we hypothesized. Our findings with age coincided with the book that the younger population was able to get basic necessities, yet we hypothesized that the middle-aged would be best able to obtain basic necessities, not the younger group.
It would be interesting to test more independent variables such as location of living, gender, and race to see if there is a positive correlation with not being able to attain basic necessities.